Hey, what's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the Brown Gen. If you're new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and just in case, make sure you hit the thumbs up or the like button so that YouTube knows to send you more of my videos your way. Today, we're talking about Nano Dimensions, our favorite 3D printer stock, and Ben Ramirez has got a spot on over here. We're so pumped. We hope this stock will move. Now, there's a lot of noise that's being made from Nano Dimensions, and it's not just a sort of recent run-up, but it has a lot to do with their recent offer to purchase another company and use a lot of the funds that they raised during the bear market to good use. So, as a quick recap, Nano Dimensions was a stock that wasn't doing so well around the pandemic time. So, when March happened, we saw Nano Dimensions, just like every other stock sort of crater. It went down to like 50 cents. You can probably see that here. I'm going to zoom in. So you can see here, it's like 50 cents in this range. And then what happened was it just started running up with the meme rallies. It ran up with so much free capital available and people looking for companies to buy. So it ran up all the way from 50 cents to a high of about $4 or $5. And what happened there was a bit of a shocker. So if you're new here, what actually happened, if we go back in sort of memory lane, Yoav Stern was the president and CEO at the time. He's now just the CEO. He issued a ton of share dilutions. I believe there were 7 or 8 in total. And he raised $1.5 billion of cash. And what he had said was, this kind of run-up is not sustainable in the long term. So let me do all the shareholders a favor and think about the long term of this company. He pocketed that cash on their balance sheet by diluting the shareholders. So that you saw a ton of spikes and drops. If he hadn't done that many dilutions, I'm pretty sure Nano Dimensions would have risen to at least $50 at that point. So for short-term investors, kind of sucked for us. For those who stick around long term, which I ended up doing, because this is one of 3 speculative stocks in my portfolio. As a reminder, it's Nano Dimensions, Zomedica, and Marathon Digital Holdings that I hold on to as speculative in my portfolio. And before we even go any further, just a reminder, nothing that I say in this video is financial advice. So do your own research and your own due diligence, because at the end of the day, you're the only one responsible for your success. If you end up watching these videos and you get a good idea and you've got to implement it, that's all on you. You're the one who had the conviction. You're the one who did your due diligence. So don't thank me. Thank yourself for getting educated, okay? So at the peak, after the pandemic, we rose to around $17 to $18. And at this point, there were no more share dilutions. But something strange happened. We noticed that the treasury or the 2-year treasury bond sort of skyrocketing. It went from 1% to 2% to 3%, I believe. And what that was indicative of was high inflation. Tons of money out there really devaluing sort of assets. So there's a lot of fear in the market that a lot of these stocks would not be able to hold on to their gains. So investors started a mass exodus, getting out of pretty much so many of the small caps. We saw this across the board. If you look at all the small caps in that time period, they all cratered. We still saw in this year a lot of stocks do well, but they were more of the tech and large cap stocks like Nvidia, Tesla, Apple. So what happened here was Nano Dimensions sort of cratered, and it just flew all the way down over the course of a year, all the way down to the $2 range. And then it stuck between $2 to $3 for a little while. And we sort of were stuck on December 22nd at the sort of local low. And we jumped up in March to like $3, went back down to like $2.20. And recently over the last, let's just zoom this in here, over the last few weeks, we've seen a massive run up relatively, right? So you can actually see here, and this is why it's so important to chart. I recommend if you have the money to put into a stock, then you have the time to chart the stock and sort of understand how it moves. because price action can help you predict the future. So when we look at this over here, Nano Dimensions has seen a big spike, and a lot of that has to do to two big factors. Number one, they had some fantastic earnings, right? So if you scroll up here, they showed record Q1 2023 results revenue of $15 million, 43% year-over-year growth, and they were going to continue their share buyback program, right? So this was fantastic sort of results, and this is exactly what we wanted to see on the path of profitability, right? As you remember also, Nano Dimensions has about $805 million in market capitalization right now, but if you look back down here, the company's equity is actually $1.15 million or $1.16 million, meaning that there's a $300 million gap in equity, just like on nothing else alone but what the company holds on to. So technically, the stock should be worth at least 420 or 450. I know people like that 420 number. Now, let's talk about what you're here for today. And every time I sort of refresh this page, I get a pop-up usually. Well, let's just click on this. You'll see it. Oh, that pop-up's not showing up anymore. But basically, there is an offer out for StrataSys, right? So this is another printing company. It's 3D Systems, and Nano Dimensions was really sort of trying to get involved and opposing their proposed merger with Desktop Metal, right? They believe it was a value destructive alternative for the shareholders, and they were offering back in July 10th $24 per share in cash, which would be an incredible investment and sort of, a sort of use for some of the cash on the balance sheet, because at the end of the day, that's why Yoav Stern wanted to lock up the cash, right? He didn't want to get involved in SPAC mania, as he calls it. He wanted to get a good deal on companies to bring into the fold. So on July 10th, and before we go into today's update, they increased their offer price from $20.05 to $24 per share, obviously removing any sort of the withholding taxes. And this is a huge premium to all relevant StrataSys historical trading levels, including like an 85% premium to the unaffected 60-day VWAP as of March 3rd, right? And they believe that the offer is the most compelling offer for StrataSys holders and remains the only alternative available that provides certain near-term cash value at a significant premium and provides the quickest path for the shareholders of StrataSys to realize value. Tendering shares to Nano Dimensions will deliver 220% more cash to StrataSys shareholders in the near term than any currently available alternative, including the cash for a proposed 3D Systems deal, right? And they also sort of give StrataSys the ability to generate future value creation through strategic merger and acquisition opportunities. As the largest shareholder of StrataSys, Nano Dimensions intends to support a review of strategic alternatives to further enhance shareholder value, including through industry consolidation, possibly through a negotiated combination with 3D Systems following the successful completion of the special tender offer. So they have like 7 qualified directors with extensive track records of value creation for election to the StrataSys board of directors. They named sort of 7 names. You sort of know a couple of them. Most notably, Zvi Nadivi, right? As part of Nano Dimensions president, and Yoav Stern, who's sort of the CEO and chairman of Nano Dimensions. Ben Ramirez asks, do we have a price prediction for Nano Dimensions? I have some $3 calls that expire in August. It's hard to tell because I think it's July 21st. Let me just go over here. There's a date in which they have to respond. Where is this over here? Here we go. July 24th. They have until July 24th to accept the offer or not. I think either way, whether or not they accept the offer, when the deal gets closed, the value of Nano Dimensions will increase because I believe they currently own 15% of StrataSys, and StrataSys has been doing pretty good. So if I go and look it up, StrataSys stock. as a result of all like this bidding, that stock has gone up to $1.44 billion market cap, right? So you can see over here, and you sort of compare this, since, where was it, July 10th or something like this? Yeah, they went up 22% on sort of all this news, right? This is good news, and this is a very mismanaged company, which is why Yoav Stern sort of wants to take it over. How much did you buy those $3 calls for? Like, my assumption is maybe we can go to $4 to $5. I don't think it goes higher than that in the short term, because we do possibly have another Fed rate hike coming. I mean, as you know, Ben, the Bank of Canada went to 5% last Tuesday, I think, and we expect a 25 basis point hike in the next little while, right? And another one to follow right after that. So today, what happened was there was a couple more press releases. So if you look at this, they put out a press release encouraging the shareholders of StrataSys to replace the entrenched board and highlights problematic track record of their directors. So I'm going to close this. We don't need this anymore. Basically, the StrataSys board of directors have checkered personal backgrounds, as well as a warped command of corporate governance. Nano Dimensions is calling for a replacement of the board members in order to realign StrataSys governance with the interests of shareholders, right? And this typically happens with those companies where you have legacy leaders who sort of are not really feeling the pulse of the company and sort of what the shareholders want, and you just see the company being completely mismanaged. And sometimes you just need sort of fresh perspective and fresh eyes. Now, I'm not saying that the Nano Dimensions board or the people they're recommending are the best fit. They are a good fit, in my opinion. I don't know if they're the best fit, but I mean, I think it's better than what they have right now. So I think that's why I'm also all for this. The new board will focus on enabling the present competing bids to increase shareholder value, preventing the present board of directors from blocking two alternatives for StrataSys shareholders. So the current entrenched board, the actions of the board have raised significant concerns about their practices and the lack of commitment to shareholder interests. 6 of the 8 directors have spent an alarmingly long time together on the board. So this is exactly what I was saying. So I haven't gotten a chance to read this in depth, but look, a lack of new perspectives and fresh ideas, not to speak about obvious years of one hand washes the other. And what they mean by that is typically when you have a bunch of leaders who are really close, they're not going to go against each other. They're going to say, oh, well, if you want this, okay, I'll do it. And the next time when I want something, we do what I want, and you vote, and you sort of you're aligned with what I want as well, right? That's no way to run a business. At the end of the day, it should be what's in the best interest of the business and the shareholders, right? They have demonstrated a blatant disregard for shareholders' interests and resistance to change. Attempts to add a new independent director as recently as 2 to 3 years ago were met with pushback. While a new director joined the board in 2020, he was ousted barely a year later in 2021, following some self-serving corporate governance maneuvers geared at maintaining the underperforming status quo and the mummified board's grip on power. This is a pretty aggressive press release when you read it, right? You don't usually read press releases that come out like this. The board has lined their own pockets while overseeing poor performance, indulging themselves with exorbitant salaries and annual equity grants, cumulatively equaling approximately $1.8 million in the full year 22 for 8 directors, not including meeting fees for approximately 10 to 20 meetings per year and travel and entertainment expense. The board's decision-making has been marred by destructive acquisitions. They have made poor, value-destructive, and money-wasting acquisitions and or failed to integrate the acquisitions of Origin, Ultimaker, Solid Concepts, and MakerBot, followed by the questionable divestment and reinvestment in MakerBot. These actions demonstrate a lack of strategic foresight and a failure to prioritize long-term value creation for the company and the shareholders. So that's pretty much, I'm not going to go through all the details in here. The reality is they're just sort of calling out the people in here who are sort of, in their minds, not doing the fiduciary responsibilities and saying, hey, we can do so much better than accepting the status quo at StrataSys. And they are trying to present a plan that they say would be much better in the short and the long term, right? Now, I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to go through and read sort of what each person's done. What I'm going to do after the fact is I will put a link to this press release So you can take a look, but it's basically, you know, there's nothing positive said about any of these people. And then, you know, they followed up by saying, hey, you know what? Our candidates are highly qualified with extensive experience overseeing value creation, and they can replace the StrataSys board, right? And, you know, the name sort of, you know, we mentioned before, but Yoav Stern and Zivi Nadivi. Now, what I would say here is Yoav Stern is definitely the person to bring in if you want to maximize your value. He's really, like, love him or hate him, and you probably hated him if you were in Nano Dimensions before, but he single-handedly kept this company from going bankrupt. He did it at the expense of the short-term shareholders, but at the end of the day, his number one goal is to ensure the company makes money, and the best way to do that was to lock in a lot of that capital that was coming in from traders by diluting them. And because of that, he's been able to sort of add to their business, and now he's looking to make a big addition with a bigger component of StrataSys, I believe between 30 to 50%, if I look back at the filing. So one of the things you can do is go to investors.nano-di.com, go to investors, and then sort of, you know, check their press releases. I also check the SEC filings because they're very important to look at. There's a lot of things that you will miss if you don't look at that. Just, you know, every so often you can check what they have. So you go to SEC filings, and it'll show you like the dates, right? So there's two on the 17th, right, which is today. I think this is the shorter one of the two. So this is just sort of like the report of foreign private issuer, and it talks about like the Nano Dimension sort of, and their press release, right? So this is the one that I just went over, and the press release on the clearance for the special tender offer. The second one is more of an update. So they submitted this before, but it's an amendment to their tender offer statement. So you can see over here, you know, if you want to take a read at it, there's a bunch of like statements here about their offer to purchase and sort of what's happened since. And you have the two press releases here as well. So if you click on this, you'll sort of see the exact same thing we went through, right? So, so that part's okay. And finally, you know, just the thing that we want to make sure we talk about here is they're now seeking to purchase another 31.9 to 36.9% of the outstanding ordinary shares of StrataSys that are not already owned by Nano Dimensions, right? So, you know, if they were able to do this, they would own a majority of the company. You know, the minimum condition of owning at least 46% of outstanding StrataSys shares at a price of $24 per share, which is honestly, like, even at this price, it's only at 21.12, another $3. If you're a shareholder in StrataSys, you want this. You also want to make sure that you are getting top talent that can make a change, right? So if you own StrataSys and you sort of get to vote, this is something that I think, you know, if I owned StrataSys shares, I would be voting for this. And you know, I think they should sort of go through this. But yeah, so the conditions are, you know, outlined in the offer to purchase, which I showed you that document. So that's pretty much all I have to say about the offer. You know, Nano Dimensions today was up 2.25%. Like, for me, I have a long-term time horizon for Nano Dimensions. It's hard for a company like this to go up significantly unless we see a risk-on environment, right? So maybe I'll sort of just describe how that works. When you look, and let me go back to like TradingView. So let's look at a company like Apple, okay? So Apple was actually $120, I think, in November. And you can actually see, like, just take a look at this graph. It's just straight up, right? This is a real recovery from $124 back in January all the way down up to $193, $194, hitting an all-time high. This is just like literally just an arrow up, right? These are incredible opportunities that exist. Everyone knows Apple's a good company, just like everyone knows Tesla's a good company. All of those companies have to recover first because they are the top opportunity. Once they have recovered, the next step is for the mid-cap stocks. So what's the next level of risk? Get those stocks up. Once that's done, then we go to small caps, and then we go to like penny stocks, right? So Nano Dimensions is sort of a small cap penny stock kind of stock. It's like, you know, about $1 billion market cap. And in the long term, once we know inflation is under control, once the Fed has sort of done tightening rates, we're going to see this process accelerate, and we're going to start seeing big movements in stocks like this. Until then, we're going to see a lot of sideways movement, which is why I personally would not buy calls right now. I would buy shares if I want to add. I would sell covered calls and sell the right to gamble those shares to somebody else, but I would not be buying calls unless you're buying leaps. So like if you're buying like calls that are like 2 to 3 years out, for sure. Like I have I have 4 currently. I have 5 Mara leaps right now for December 2025, right? That is like 24 plus 6, like 30 months away. That's still a long-term horizon, right? For Nano Dimensions, like, you know, I know Ben, you bought some August calls. Best of luck. I hope it works out for you. But I would prefer leaps because they're so much more potent. But in that case, like, you could just buy shares, right? Like at $3 a share, you could buy 100 shares and potentially sell a covered call every month and make like 20, 30 bucks off it, right? And if it skyrockets, perfect. You got the 30 bucks and you got like an additional premium, right? So that's sort of what I wanted to cover today. You know, somewhat short video. I'm super bullish on Nano Dimensions. Like I wouldn't be making this video otherwise. Like I'll be honest with you that the videos I make on YouTube, I'm trying to just be more involved in the community. I know I get asked a lot of times by people to sort of make videos on certain stocks. Nano Dimensions is a stock I really believe in. You know, if I didn't, I wouldn't make videos on it, and I wouldn't pick it to be one of my 3 speculative stocks. But one of the things I'll always recommend that you do your own research. You know, you saw what I put up there. If you have anything else to add, please post in the comments below. Even if you don't, just post in the comment below and say that you enjoyed this video, say that you love Nano Dimensions, post something. Interact with the video, and more people will see it because it'll get pushed to them. Yeah, fingers crossed, Ben. I hope it works out. But buy some shares, you know, and you know what? I will text you after because I would love to hear about what your cost basis is on that. But that being said, that's all I have for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.